You want to dive into the stories and myths behind Professor Scienza's new series, but Italian isn't your thing. No problem. You find all the conversation translated in English in the new Mama Jumbo Shrimp book, an Italian wine pilgrimage with Professor Attilio Scienza. Now available in English on Amazon.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. And remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hi everyone, this is Beatrice welcoming you to the Italian Wine Clubhouse Ambassadors Corner, one of the top-ranked shows on Italian Wine Podcast. Here, our ambassadors get the mic to interview their favorite producers with total freedom. And if you miss it live, no worries, it's all recorded and dropped later on the Italian Wine Podcast. Our guest host today is Fulvia Tai. Fulvia is a multicultural wine professional and founder of Diffusa, who, after falling in love with Italian viticulture upon moving to Italy in 2017, now bridges boutique Italian wineries with Asian markets through her consultancy. Today, she's gonna interview Domenico Tappero Merlo from Tappero Merlo. So how you doing, Domenico? How you doing, Fulvia?
We're fine.
Perfect. So, Fulvia, are you ready for our ritual question?
Yes, please do.
So, how did you discover the wines of Tappero Merlo?
Actually, it starts with a bit of wine destiny. Back when I was studying for my sommelier master at Alma, my group had to design a wine list. A good friend of mine, a sommelier working in a Michelin restaurant, gave me a tip. He said, "You have to check out Tappero Merlo, put their keen Erbaluce and their Bohemian Pasido on the list." After a few months in Italy, I just finished tasting a Barolo Movigliero. I turned around and there it was, a bottle of Keen. Standing behind it was the winemaker Domenico Tappero Merlo, and he was pouring this 6-year-old white wine into a massive, elegant decanter using this striking glass sphere aerator, passionately telling everyone that his white wine needed to breathe. I was instantly hooked. And the deeper you dig into his story, the wilder it gets. We are talking about a vineyard once owned by the writer of Madame Butterfly, a hidden native grape from Piemonte, and bottle labels designed by an artist who collaborates with legendary chef Massimo Bottura. There is so much to uncover today with Domenico.
That sounds like a fairy tale to me, so for me it's time to mute myself and turning over the floor to you, Fulvia. Have a nice interview, guys. I can't wait.
Thank you, Beatrice. Domenico, it's so nice to have you here. You produce Erbaluce di Caluso in the Canavese area, an area that is really close to Valle d'Aosta. Since Erbaluce is very versatile, you do it in different versions, sparkling, still, dessert, a blend with a loaf grape, and even vermouth. I think the listeners might not be familiar with your terroir. So, Domenico, when wine lovers think of Piemonte, their minds immediately drift to the clay and limestone hills of the Langhe. But up here in the Canavese, we are standing in a completely different geological world, the Ivrea Morainic Amphitheatre. There is a massive dramatic landscape sculptured by the ancient Balteo Glacier, leaving behind a soil that is roughly 18% sandy, incredibly poor in organic matter, but packed with granite, quartz, and mica stone. So the question is, for our listeners trying to visualize this, how does this extreme, stony, glacial blueprint physically manifest in the glass? What does the specific terroir give to your wines that you simply cannot find anywhere else in Italy?
The extreme sandy and stony nature of the Ivrea Morainic Amphitheatre dictates everything about how our vines grow and what you ultimately taste in the glass, because the soil has a low pH composed of 70-85% sand and is extremely poor in organic matter and nitrogen. It naturally stresses the vines, which is a crucial characteristic for determining low yields of very high quality. What you physically experience in the glass is a direct translation of the glacial footprints. The high level of potassium in the soil favors the accumulation of sugar in the grapes during the ripening period, while the abundance of phosphates contributes specifically to incredible finesse of the wine. To ensure this translation is pure, we completely avoid chemical weeding, allowing the natural microflora and microfauna of the earth to transfer this minerally in a form the vine can directly assimilate, resulting in wine that are a true representation of the soil. When you taste our wine, you are literally tasting the ancient stone of the Balteo Glacier. We extract the very flavor of the heart from the soil. This terroir gives our wine a strong territorial imprinting designed for immense longevity, allowing them to release granitic shines from the Alpine peaks and the age. This is manifest in the glass as an Alpine soul with a clear, distinct mineral imprint. You can trace this unmistakable glacial signature across our different wine. In our still Erbaluce kin, the terroir creates a wine of great vivacity and texture, where freshness and sapidity alternate beautifully, leading to a long persistence and incredible balance. Our traditional method sparkling wine, Cuvée de Paladin, expresses the Morainic earth through intense notes of aromatic herbs and chalk, finishing with a distinct and complex minerality. Our Acini Perduti, made from ancient white varieties, showcase the sandy, stony soil through an harmoniously balanced profile of bright freshness and deep sapidity, ending with spicy and mineral finish. Ultimately, this specific terroir gives our wine a vibrant tension, a profound sapidity and elegant finesse, and highly complex, chalky minerality that perfectly encapsulates the dramatic history of the glacier.
Wow, that's fascinating. So let's talk about the grape that defines the Caluso denomination at Erbaluce. It's a fascinating variety, rustic with thick golden skins that literally shine like dawnlight, alba luce. And it possesses some of the highest, most electric natural acidity of any white grape in Italy. In the wrong hands, it can be aggressively sharp. In the right hands, it's profound. So the question is, as a winemaker, how do you approach timing this fierce acidity in the cellar? What is your philosophy when it comes to using tools like extend least contact or a large wood to soften the grape without losing its vibrant mineral core?
When you're dealing with Erbaluce, patience isn't just a virtue, it's an absolute necessity. It's a grape with this fierce, vibrant acidity. My goal isn't to strip that away, but to let the wine age until everything beautifully blends into this harmonious, complex texture. We want to preserve the granitic mineral essence inherits from our Alpine peaks. To tame this wild acidity, I really heavily on patient and traditional techniques. Spontaneous fermentation with indigenous yeast, extended aging in large oaks, and long resting periods in the bottle. We use a 40 hectoliter Slavonian oak or fermentation, which then continues in 20 hectoliter French oak cask for aging. Let me show you how the philosophy actually tests across three of our wine. First, kin, our still Erbaluce DOCG. We release our still Erbaluce only after at least 5 years. To soften this wine without losing its vibrant core, they must remain in contact with the skin for 3 or 4 days, followed by a spontaneous fermentation. Afterward, we rack into large 20 hectoliter oak cask for 18 to 36 months on the fine lees, where it also undergoes malolactic fermentation and is subjected to weekly batonnage. This extended contact with the wood and the gentle microoxygenation beautifully tame the acidity. When you drink it, freshness and sapidity dance back and forth before melting into a soft, warm citrus finish. It's a wine built for incredible longevity. Cuvée Paladin, our traditional method of sparkling. For our sparkling Erbaluce, initial fermentation happened partly in still and partly in exhausted barrique. Then we let it undergo an elevatorly aging on the yeast for at least 60 months. Even after 5 years, the natural acidity of Erbaluce gives the wine this brilliant vivacity and striking freshness right from the first glance. On the palate is elegant, full, enveloping, finished with the sweeter notes of honey and vanilla that are completely balanced out by distinct crisp minerality. Bohemian, our Pasito desert wine. This is our sweet Pasito, and it is pure passion. We rigorously select the grapes and leave them to wither naturally in well-ventilated attics, where they are attacked by Botrytis cinerea, the famous noble rot. The highly concentrated must ferments incredibly low and age in oak barrel for at least 4 years. Now, even with intense sweetness and rich flavor of dried figs, dates, and candied citrus, Erbaluce's inherent acidity is the secret weapon here. It keeps the wine warm and developing, but gives it distinct freshness that prevents it from even being cloying. It perfectly balances the sweet components of a classical Caluso Passito.
Wow, thank you for explaining Erbaluce. So there is a fascinating detail that deeply strikes anyone who approaches your flagship wine, the Erbaluce King. And then this is the genuine ritual surrounding its service. In the minds of mainstream consumers, white wine is supposed to be served ice cold and popped right open right at the table. But with King, you completely overturn this unwritten rule. In your service guidelines, you said that this wine expresses its characteristic best when served at an unusually warm temperature for a white between 14 and 16 degrees. Furthermore, you advise taking care to open a bottle at least 1 hour before consumption, or even better, oxygenating it into a decanter by pouring it over a specialized oxygenation sphere, an artisanal tool that looks almost like a alchemist's talisman. So the question is, this level of care and deliberate exposure to oxygen is something we typically reserve for grand aged red wines. What exactly does this interaction with time and air unlock within the structural and aromatic architecture of skin? What happens in a glass when we let Erbaluce breathe at this temperature? And how do you guesses react when they see a white wine treated with this kind of reverence?
Imagine a beautiful large glass decanter, but inside there is this specially crafted ceramic sphere. When you pour the wine over it, it creates what we call a waterfall effect. Suddenly, the surface area of the wine expanding against the air multiplied drastically. You are essentially getting the kind of oxygenation in mere second that would normally force you to wait 30 to 60 minutes with a standard static decanter. And the physics behind it is fascinating. That mechanical impact of the wine hitting the sphere actually break apart to fight volatile molecular bonds. You know, the slightly funky sulfur reduction odors that naturally build up during long aging. By instantly dispersing those gases, the wine is instantly cleaned, and it's true, uninterrupted aromas can finally step into the spotlight. Plus, it completely re-architects the texture. That rapid oxygenation interact with the tannin, instantly taming any aggressive or green edge. It just makes the whole structure rounder, smoother, and incredibly pleasant on the palate. If you are pouring an Erbaluce, for example, and you let it breathe in that sweet spot temperature of 14 to 16 degrees, the wide shape of this decanter acts like a sounding board for the bouquet. It unloads this absolute explosion of perfume. You get intense, elegant note of shade blending into these really intriguing balsamic and spicy hints. On the palate, it's beautiful dancing between freshness and sapidity, leaving you with this soft, warm citrus finish that perfectly highlight the wine mineral imprint and the Alpine soul. Now, while the data clearly proves how profoundly this ritual elevates the structural and aromatic quality of the wine, if I have to admit, the intensity of the aromas releasing from the decanter completely blow guests away. They are incredibly surprised by the result the moment they smell and taste it.
Well, so now you talk about the evolution making in the sparkling, still, and the Pasido. So one of your most fascinating project is called Acini Perduti, which translates to lost berries. Through this initiative, you became a crucial champion of the retrieval of Malvasia moscata, a rare aromatic white grape native to the area that had completely vanished from commercial viticulture and was teetering on the edge of extinction. So the question is, why did this grape get lost to the history in the first place? When you successfully brought it back and vinified it, what kind of aromatic treasure in terms of those incredible notes of sage, thyme, and wild honey do you realize the region had almost lost forever?
The Acini Perduti project is our way of bringing a piece of forgotten history back to life. We actually identified this lost native vine through a book written all the way back in the 17th century by a man named Giovan Battista Croce. He wasn't just any writer, he was the jeweler and sommelier to the Duke of Savoy. In his treatise is described the incredible aromatic grape with long, thick bunches, and that was good to eat and to make wine, which is sweet and tastes of the grape. That's such a good grape, you just vanish into the air. It all comes down to history and a sort of natural selection agriculture. Malvasia moscata was less productive and more dedicated than Moscato, which eventually took over. In the Canavese region, Erbaluce and Nebbiolo established absolute dominance. They were simply perfect for our mineral-rich, highly acidic Morainic soil because they became the primary economic driver. Other native varieties like this Malvasia were forgotten, or only a few vines remained per vineyard to be used as table grapes. But here is the plot twist. In reality, the grape variety never went extinct. It survived by emigrating to California in the 19th century, brought along by Piemontese immigrants who carried the cutting with them. We managed to identify some Malvasia moscata vine in all vineyards, and starting from the cutting of these ancient plants, we began propagating them in a nursery until we are able to plant in a small vineyard. Today, we continue to reproduce this rooted cutting with the goal of reaching a vineyard acreage large enough to sustain the production of our wine. We ferment in stainless steel tanks using indigenous yeast, where it develops a gorgeous greenish yellow color and extraordinary nose. The following spring, we proceed with creating the blend. The Malvasia moscata from the latest harvest is assembled with an Erbaluce that has been aged for a couple of years. The percentage of two wine changes from year to year, calibrating perfectly based on the aromatic intensity of the Malvasia and the structure of the wine. Usually, the ideal balance is achieved with a 50% contribution from bud wine. Right off the bat, you get this intense fresh herbaceous scents, thin sage, beautifully layered with lemongrass and wild herbs. But right behind that freshness, it opened up into a vibrant fruit bouquet of citrus, pears, and crisp apple, mixed with the floral notes on acacia and broom. When you actually taste it, it is the palate with this beautiful balance of freshness and sapidity, and then it wraps up with a slightly spicy, distinctly mineral finish. It is truly like taking a sip of an intriguing past that our region had almost lost forever.
Okay, Domenico. So your journey at Tappero Merlo feels like a radical rebellion against a modern world obsessed with speed. You have essentially embraced slowness in three distinct ways. Personal passion. You returned to the land in 2001, but waited 13 years of silence, cleaning, and replanting before your first major commercial release. And then also in the cellar, for your Pasito Bohemian, you let the grapes hanging in the attic for 5 months before even pressing them. In your future, your dry Erbaluce possesses a mythical aging potential, involving beautifully for 20 to 40 years like a great German Riesling. So looking back, what was the psychological toll of that initial 13-year wait before you finally test a harvest and knew you were ready? And when you are out in the vineyards today, are you crafting wine for current market, or are you intentionally sealing a time capsule meant to be opened decades from now?
Looking back along the timeline of a project like Kin means measuring oneself against a dimension that today feels almost subversive in an era dominated by everything right now, where speed is mistaken for efficiency and instantaneous for value. Waiting is not just a production choice. It is an act of cultural resistance, an exercise carried out in solitude with unwearying determination. In a market that constantly demands novelty and immediate readily, deliberately deciding not to release a wine, holding it back in the cellar because it's not ready yet, requires immense fortitude. It means silently accepting the economic weight of that delay, prioritizing the identity and perfection of the vintage over immediate commercial gratification. Today, walking through the vineyard row, I'm fully aware that I have sealed this wine inside the true time capsule, which radically changed the ultimate meaning of the work we do. No technology, chemical process, or marketing strategy can replicate what waiting in the darkness of the cellar accomplishes over the years. Time is only ingredient with absolutely no substitutes. When the scarce resource on the market become time itself, a wine that has successfully safeguarded and become a luxury good in the truest sense, not because of its price tag, but because of its conceptual rarity. This is why when a wine lover finally has the opportunity to task in, the emotion is overwhelming. They instantaneously perceive the sharp divide between a mere consumer product and piece of liquid art. The wine inside the bottle is like a message cast into the future. It is a way to pass down to those who come after us not just a flavor, but a sensory screenshot of a specific vintage, a philosophy, and a territory kept intact and beautifully protected from the frenzy on the outside world. In a world race ahead, I am proud to have had the courage to wait, fully aware that I wasn't wasting time. I was transforming it into an invaluable emotional asset.
Okay, thank you, Domenico. So not only your wines are beautiful, but also your vineyard. So your spectacular Vigna del Belvedere in Lorenzo is often described as a natural balcony overlooking the entire Canavese world. But it also holds an incredible piece of cultural history. This land was once owned by the family of Giuseppe Giacosa, the legendary playwright and librettist who wrote the text for Giacomo Puccini's greatest operas, including La Bohème, Tosca, and Madame Butterfly. It said Puccini himself spent time in this area soaking in the atmosphere. So when you are walking those historic roads, do you feel a certain poetic weight or artistic responsibility? How does a deep connection to the golden age of Italian opera shape the narrative and the soul of the wines that come from the Belvedere vineyard?
Walking through the history row of the Vigna del Belvedere is seeing the hidden experience steeped in magic, history, and fascination. The land, which passed to the Giacosa family in the 18th century, is inextricably linked to Giuseppe Giacosa, the legendary playwright and librettist who crafted the stories for Giacomo Puccini masterpieces like La Bohème, Tosca, and Madama Butterfly. This deep connection to the golden age of Italian opera carries a profound poetic weight and easily shapes the philosophy behind the wine. Giuseppe Giacosa, known locally as the Pin, was not just a literary genius but a great admirer of the vineyard and local wine, famously recommending that it was good manner to welcome guests with an excellent glass of Caluso Passito. To cultivate the specific land is to embrace an artistic responsibility. At Tappero Merlo, winemaking is explicitly viewed through the lens of art, drawing inspiration from the estate's ancestor. The vineyard is seen a canvas, the Erbaluce grape as the brush, and the sun, rain, and soil as the color used to craft a new work each year. This cultural heritage dictates the very soul and narrative of the wine in a few key ways. Honoring the legacy. The connection to Giacosa directly inspired the estate creation, most notably the Bohemian Caluso Passito, which is a direct homage to Giacosa's work on La Bohème. Narrating the territory, the ultimate goal is to tell the stories of my land through wine, transferring the rugged character of the Alpine soil, the local people, and the history of Ivrea Morainic Amphitheatre into the glass. Creating emotion, much like a moving opera, the intention behind the wine is to resurrect artisanal knowledge and offer something that leaves a lasting memory and emotion for anyone who tastes it, enhancing the cultural identity of the place. The Vigna del Belvedere is not just a natural balcony overlooking the Canavese, it's a cultural monument where the heart of winemaking and the history of Italian opera continuously intertwine.
Okay, and with that, we come to the end of an incredible episode. Domenico, thank you so much for taking us on this journey today, not just through the stony glacial soils of Canavese, but through a philosophy of life that reminds us all of the power of slowing down. To our listener, if you ever needed proof that wine is so much more than what is inside the glass, that is a single bottle can hold the echoes of Italian opera, the retrieval of a lost grape, and a radical commitment to patience. You just heard it from Domenico Tappero Merlo. The next time you are lucky enough to open a bottle of King, remember the lesson from today. Do not rush it. Give it time to breathe and remember that you are drinking over a decade of silent dedication and a literal time capsule of the Piemontese hills. Thank you for listening to me and Domenico. I will give the floor back to Beatrice.
That was such a wonderful interview, Fulvia and Domenico. It was amazing. So thank you so much. For those who are interested to participate, just send us a DM through our Instagram or mail our Italian Wine Podcast producers at info@italianwinepodcast.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. And thank you again, Fulvia and Domenico, to have spent some time with us. So this is a wrap from Italian Wine Podcast. Ciao, ciao!
Ciao, ciao!
Ciao!
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, chin chin.